Hi, I'm Reed Roosevelt. I'm here to tell you about Emvoice One, a virtual vocalist. It'll allow you to have singing inside your projects when you're not able to sing yourself. What it is a plugin that works within your DAW. It's a pretty simple idea. You just click in notes like you would anyway, and then what you see as you're doing that is it says enter text. It's pretty simple, and you type something in. Notice it has to be the same number of syllables as the notes. And at that point, you could change it. You just, or make it longer. It works just pretty much. Yeah. And so it's a simple idea, but it's not an immediately intuitive user interface. So if you downloaded the free demo is exactly the same as what I have. It's only limited to 8 notes, but you have all 3 voices that they sell. So the only difference between what you get for free and what this is that I have purchased a voice. What you see is that they have 3 voices. The first one came out, I think it was 2019, around Black Friday, November.
Hello.
It's their female singer, obviously.
My name is Lucy. I'd really love to sing that song for you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. And then the year after that, they came out with a male singer. So that was, 2020, November, Jay.
Hey, my name is Jay.
Nice to meet you.
I could be singing for you now.
Yeah, but I'm doing this video.
I could be
All right.
singing.
And then in January of 2022, which was for me just a few weeks ago, they came out with Thomas, who's a vocoder voice.
Oh, hey, my name's Thomas. Are you ready to make better?
Not exactly sure why they chose a vocoder voice, because you could just do a vocoder yourself. Anyway, the price has been going down since they came out with Lucy. I mean, it was, at that point, Lucy was $199, which put it at the very top end of this kind of thing. And then a year later, when Jay came out, they brought it down to, $130 or so. And then this year at Black Friday was $120. And then for some reason, the beginning of 2022 went down to $99, which is their price now, but they've got it reduced to $59. And because that's scratched out, I'm assuming buying at $59 now is a sale. And you might, if you don't pick it up reasonably soon, it might go back to $99. I'm not sure about that, but at this moment in time, it is the really cheapest way to get into this kind of thing. Should also say that when you have the software, it updates forever at no additional charge. And, if you have the free version, it updates forever. It's, and that's one of the reasons, is because it's done through the cloud. These aren't synthesizer voices. These don't come from sine waves or something like that, or square waves or whatever. Somebody, a real person, recorded every single phoneme that you can make, and in all the notes, I guess. And it was done in London. And then when you write a word, it goes off into the cloud to some server somewhere, and that server interprets that word into phonemes and then sends it back. So I guess it needs a lot of data to do that, and that's why it's in the cloud. Here's something you don't see quite often: server status in a program. So it's like as if when I had a web business, I had something like this. One of the things that's really cool about it is that if you don't like it when you buy a voice, you can actually return it. The plugin works in all formats, in VST2 and VST3 and audio units and AAX. And so whatever you're running on your computer, they will play. The video is about how to use it for songwriting. So why that? Well, I watched a lot of videos on Emvoice, and they all kind of showed the basic idea, but they didn't really show how to do an entire song. Some of them would just go, look at me, I made this little piece of a song, and doesn't it sound awesome? But they didn't really show you how they did it, any problems they might have had to do it, or any issues or whatever. They didn't show you all the things that are in Emvoice. And I think if you don't make an entire song, if you just fiddle about with it, then people are only going to be listening to the flaws. But if you have a song with a nice melody, and if you have a song with good lyrics, and a song with great arrangement, great production, they'll be more willing to give a break to issues with the virtual singer. And that's true of a lot of the most successful virtual singing things I've seen on YouTube. If I really like the song, I kind of can go, well, I kind of enjoy the whole piece. And I personally don't plan to be making many things that will have a virtual voice in it, but the important thing to me is the whole song. So I want to take this kind of approach to this video to say always, when you're working with a virtual singer, work as if the virtual singer was singing with a band or singing to your track. And always think about how it's going to fit in. Don't think of it in isolation. Because if you do that, you're going to get the best results. And as I use it, not for making a performance out of it, but for songwriting, that is absolutely essential. I will be able to teach you everything you need to know about Emvoice. So I think everything that's in this video you need to know. That doesn't mean you need to watch the video. I am put together topics, there's chapter headings, and if you feel you already know something, or you get bored with what I'm saying, whatever it is, just jump over to the next topic on the slider below or in the copy below this. And while I will show you everything that you need to know in order to make an advanced or more realistic voice, I'll show you the techniques, but I won't really get deep into the weeds on that. Now, I never had the slightest interest in getting Vocaloid or anything like that. When people talked about these things, I was like, I tuned out. Because for all my life, when I've been recording my songs, I just used my own voice. But that changed a little bit when I was doing a video quite recently in January about Betty Page. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if I could have somebody singing Betty on it? And I thought, well, maybe I could do that. But I kind of thought, well, a woman singer would be better for this piece. And then I happened to remember that I had software called Realivox Blue, which is made by Realism. And I was only using this for backup vocals. But it does make sounds. It can't sing everything. It has a B, and as you can see, it has a B, it has an S sound, it has a T, it has an E sound, and so it could work. And so I thought, well, let me try. To me, it really added a lot to the video. I took it from something that was just music into something that anybody listened to it, they could go, yes, he wrote this music to be only about Betty Page. So I thought, well, maybe there could be some more possibilities for using it. I'm currently working on another video. This video needed a certain kind of sound. So I started looking through songs that I'd written. I have like all these notebooks full of songs. So it's like the history of my life, writing songs, and there's dozens of them, most of them that I've never recorded. And I found this song that was 20 years old, and I hadn't sung it in 20 years, and I had the chords, and I sort of remembered what the song was, but I didn't know exactly what the song was. But I said, well, what if I got one of these virtual vocalists, and I would put the lyrics and the notes in, and it could be a process of remembering what the song was. So now I was in the market for a virtual vocalist. And there were really three options. There was Vocaloid, there was Emvoice, and there was something called Synthesizer V. Now, I didn't want to go with Vocaloid because it was 20 years old, and now there were these two new products. And I thought, all right. And people were really raving about Synthesizer V in the forums that I go to. Anyway, so what I decided to do was to download the free demos of both products and study them and watch videos and so on and make my decision. So this is what I discovered. This is Synthesizer V. I mean, you can see what an incredible difference there is here. Look at all these sliders and parameters. It's just on a whole other level from Emvoice. There's so much you can do. So I'm going to say, without question, if your goal is to push the envelope of what is possible with a virtual voice, then this is your choice. Now, it's a little bit more expensive. If you want to get this and one voice, then it's around $150. And that's the few voices that come from the company Dreamtonic that made it. And there are other companies that make voices. So if I was going to get into it, there's a voice I would want called Eleanor Forte, an English language voice. So I would end up spending in the neighborhood of $200 for me to get going with this. The voices that were made for it for years and years were Japanese and Chinese voices. There was no English language things. It's only recently started to have English language voices, which what I mean is by recently, I'm saying December. Emvoice has been English language since the very beginning. And the voices, the phonemes were recorded in London, not in Asia. Emvoice only has a few choices. You learn it faster. If you want to just do something like this quickly, Emvoice is your choice. On the other hand, I find this to be a lot more intuitive than Emvoice, and I found myself being able to draw in notes on this, let me get a pencil, faster. And it just started to work for me much quicker than working in Emvoice. This has got a piano. And it's a lot easier to write notes if you can hear them. Emvoice doesn't have that. It has a piano, but it doesn't make any sounds. It comes with light versions of the voices. So you can't learn from the demo exactly how good it can be, because you need the professional voices for that. Whereas with Emvoice, you'll hear exactly what you're going to get. While Emvoice One works as a plugin, the demo of Synthesizer V is a standalone. You have to get the professional version of Synthesizer V in order to get the plugin and standalone. So the first thing I would do after you download the demo and load it up in your DAW is I would go immediately to the help menu. And this is where you'd find the manual. You don't have to look at that. But I would click Cheat Sheet. And this brings up a page with all the basic stuff. And particularly these three things at the top, but maybe this stuff here. And if you can spend 5 or 10 minutes on that thing, you're not going to have any frustration at all in getting started with it. So that is like the number one thing to do. And the number two thing I would do is I'd go into view, because you can't go full screen on this. And that's just what you're dying to do, is to go full screen. But there's this thing called editor size. So look at this. Medium, I think it defaults here, but you certainly are going to want to have the biggest one you can get. So you go to large. So that you need. And then there's also a theme. There's a dark theme and there's a light theme. For me, I find the light theme much easier, but that's your taste. And then I would look towards the keyboard shortcuts, and because they will save you a lot of time. And in fact, if you have something like a Stream Deck, one of these things, where you can take keyboard shortcuts and assign them to a button. If you have anything like that, I would do this immediately because it would save you a ton of time. So I'll be talking a little bit about some keyboard shortcuts. You can't do anything on this program without using Alt and Control. That you're going to be doing all the time. So one of the first things you're always going to want to be doing working with something like this is make it smaller, make it bigger. And there's 3 ways you can do it. There's these tiny little things down here, little pluses and minuses. Ooh, they're so small. And then there's also, if you grab the edge of this, you can make it smaller or larger. If you grab the edge of this, nothing happens. And there's also, if you use the minus and plus keys on your keyboard, one of the things you're going to be doing all the time is, like, if you want to hear something, you have to select it and then press play.
Emvoice is easy.
Yes. See, it's not so easy. But so what you also can do is that you could go Control A, which is like something you know from everything, and then you can push play.
Emvoice is easy.
These icons are pretty obvious. There's a pencil and a pointer, and you've used this in your DAW. The thing that's different about Emvoice is you don't have to use the pencil anytime you want to draw a note. You can draw notes by clicking with the pointer, and then with the pointer you can be making them, you can drag them and stuff like that. But if you're ever doing something and it's not working with the pointer, then use the pencil. Sometimes the pencil is the best thing or the only thing to use. And this is all, obviously, there's undos and redos, and there's cut, and there's copy, and there's paste. So that's pretty simple. This is your BPM. If you hit this point, if you hit this icon, you have the option of having it follow tempo changes in your DAW, or you can just have it be a consistent tempo. I should also say that if you play your DAW, it will also, play the words as well. You don't have to do that thing if you play the DAW. This record thing is for recording the MIDI from your DAW. I should mention there's a Quantize grid. And so Emvoice will stick to this grid. And I usually keep the grid on. And if I want to do something that's not on the grid, I hit Control, and then I can put it anywhere I want. But you can also turn the grid off. And if I'm using the pencil, I then can do the same thing. It's really up to you what you want. What if I wanted to separate the last few? It doesn't work. They stay together, right? So if I hit the Alt button and I can do it. I can move them If I want, and what happens is all the words go to the place that I dragged. Having given you all this information about how to use Emvoice, I think we need to face facts and say that working in your DAW is just a lot easier and is probably always going to be a lot easier. So that's what I really think you need to do. Make your melody in your DAW and then import it into Emvoice. It's very easy to do. Because we're all just very comfortable working in our DAWs, and there are a lot of people who really can't play piano. But they make music on their computers. Certainly over half of the people who make music on their computers are not piano players or very good ones, and they use all kinds of utilities to help them come up with melodies. And all those melodies can be used within a virtual vocalist. So my feeling is, make your melodies, bring them into Emvoice, edit them in Emvoice, and if necessary, do more editing in your DAW and bring that into Emvoice. Now I'm going to show you something that you will really thank me for, and that is song export. So anytime you're working on an Emvoice song, you can export it to a file. And that's a good thing to do for backup. I mean, your DAW will back up your progress in Emvoice. But first off, staying in the program, I can do backups much quicker, or at least just as fast. And I have had it crash a little bit, I'm not going to lie, and you may have that experience on your DAW. I'm not going to blame it on Emvoice because I have problems with Cubase anyway. But here is the advantage of saving these files. You can load them up in any instance of Emvoice. So if you put a second Emvoice instance into your project, you can then have harmony. You could double, make a few changes. You could also put in a different Emvoice voice and maybe have one sing a verse and one sing the chorus, whatever, or they both sing. So you have all these options of things you can do if you're exporting your file. And it's something that you should know about and you'll be glad you knew about. I think the best way to proceed when you're making an entire song using Emvoice or any virtual vocalist is to record the backing track first. And the reason for that is a singer reacts to the band or to a backing track. Sometimes they sing a little bit ahead of the beat or a little behind the beat, and it's always changing. And that's what makes it real. And that's what makes it musical. All the art in singing gets into that phrasing of going a little bit fast, going a little bit slow, taking the lyrics and stretching them out and all of that. If you're working in Emvoice just completely in isolation and not with the song, you're never going to get it as good as it would be if you work with the song. And also for me, it's part of this process of doing the song, because sometimes I might try something in Emvoice and I'll go, that would really work. It doesn't work now, but maybe if I change that chord to a B minor, it would work. And maybe I'm just going to change the song to suit what she's saying. And that's why I like to use a program like Band in a Box, where I have my chords stuck in here, but you could use Easy Keys, or you could use Scalar, or any program that you have where you can just lay out the broad, basic bones of a song and have that so that you could easily change it later. If you decide, I'm listening to this, I think I could use another verse there, or maybe the chorus should be pushed back. And the whole idea of having this Emvoice to work with, this Lucy as your collaborator. I'm not going to take Lucy out on the road, but I am going to sit and work with her to help me make my song better. So here's the the chords to that song I was telling you about that I wrote 20 years ago. And when you put your chords together in whatever program you use, mix them down to one track, because what you're going to want to have is a very simple project. You're going to want to have the mixed down track that Emvoice is singing to, and then another track where you're going to be creating the MIDI for your melody. I'm going to suggest that you work on your song in 3 stages. The first stage is just a pass-through. You're trying to get your song in the most basic way down. So it kind of is there, and don't make any edits that really have to be precise, but you're just trying to get the general thing in place. For example, you could have 2 verses, and the first verse you could just copy and paste into the second one if it's the same notes. And on the second pass through, you could be going and editing it further and making the singing of the second verse just a little bit different here and there. The first time, cutting and paste is fine. And so don't do anything to fuss over when you're making this first pass. And then the second pass is where you do all these things that take more time to fix. And you take it all the way until you go, yes, that's how I want my song sung. That's the song. The third stage is optional. You don't really need to ever get there. That's when you take your song and you try to make a vocal that you're ready to put on YouTube or SoundCloud or whatever, and you push it and you work on things like legato and vibrato, and you try to bring the most out of it, and you really, really work hard on your timing, and you experiment with that until you're happy. Now, if you look at this arrangement, it's really simple. As I said, here's the backing track. It's the mix down from that band in a box thing. This is Emvoice, empty track. It's always going to look like this. It's always going to be empty because it's only makes its notes, it only makes its sounds within the application. So when you want to get that into audio, you have to output it to audio. And then here's my keyscape track where I'm working on my melody that I'm later going to import into Emvoice. I'm going to show you how basic this is. This is a really super dumb song. It's not the kind of thing that I would write now, and it's not something that I would consider worth recording, but it works great for this video. So let me show you how easy it is. What I do is I take my keyscape MIDI file and I just drag it up. I could also hit Alt and have 2 copies of it, but so there's got to be something on the track. Now, some people would play it in live. For me, I could play it in live, but I find it a lot easier to record it in MIDI and then make all my edits and try and get it closer. I'm in Emvoice. I just hit this red button and I hit play. I'm going to play it and you'll see how great it is. It's just going to go right in there and it's going to be perfect. You see how easy this is? It's my song. last little bit there, the way I first put it into Emvoice was not like that, and I did it a certain way, and I didn't like the way she sings it. So this is actually a second shot at how it works. I usually work in very short segments. It'll play me las. So, I want to know where. Okay, so let's see if that worked.
I want to know where.
Wow, that where is pretty short. I think I'll make it just a little longer. And then let's move over here and see what this is.
La 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 la.
Okay. Okay, so now I've attached that. So I'm going to make this your love. And this is following the laws. Has, gone. Now, gone is 2 syllables, so I just type an O, and I'll explain why. All right, so let's just see how it does.
I want to know where your love has gone. Oh.
Pretty good, huh? I'm getting close here. The reason I don't put ga on in 2 syllables, which is the way I sing it, is that's another step to do it. And so I just put the word O. Whenever I have a word that's being sung with 2 notes, I put O because that's like for second stage. This goes this far in one.
La 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 la.
Please, won't you tell me just what went wrong? Okay.
Please won't you tell me just what?
Oh. So I didn't have enough there for the went wrong stuff. So let's see if it's here.
La la la.
So went wrong. Oh. And now I'm going to listen to all of this time. Instead of playing it within here, I'm going to play the backing track.
I want to know.
Take off keyscape.
Has gone on. Please won't you tell me just what went wrong?
Oops. Gotta find the spots in the song that match up.
Went wrong now.
There we go. And then
La 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 la.
this is kind of complicated, so I'm gonna go.
La 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 la.
Okay. You said it stopped. And I'm also a great typist, in addition to being a wonderful songwriter. I'm sorry I was young when I did it, okay? So let's see. See how this works.
You said it stopped in a minute, love.
So this is in a minute. So
In a minute, la la la.
this is Can't Be So.
Can't be so.
Oh boy, that's long.
Please won't you tell me just what went wrong now? You said it stopped in a minute, I
was listening to this and I heard how short the stopped was, I thought maybe it would be interesting when I do a final on the song, what if I just have a shout where in addition to the singer going stopped, there would be stopped in the background, you know, kind of like happens in For What It's Worth, if you know that song. So it was like I got that idea by what this stopped was. What you're going to be doing when you go into the second pass is making all these little changes in timing. And if you can do them in Emvoice, you know, by moving things around just a little bit, I'm hitting the control button here so I can work outside of the grid, or if it's just too hard for me to do, I'm going back and forth between working in the DAW and working here as I try and get it into this basic version of the song. You're going to be putting reverb into this eventually, at least some, so you might as well put it in now while you're working. It just makes it sound a little bit better while you're working with it, not to have it completely dry. So I've done my first pass at the song. It's kind of very vaguely like my song, but I haven't fixed the little details. So I want to go through. So the first thing I want to do is put the legatos in. I want to take words with 2 syllables.
I want to know where your love has gone.
See, I put the word O in there to remind me that that's somewhere that I have to fix. And the reason I didn't do it the first time is you can't put that in with by playing MIDI into it. It won't work. To do that kind of sound, let me try and fix it within Emvoice itself. So I'm going to take it, drag this all the way to the end, but I can't. I'm going to have to select that and delete it by hitting backspace, and then take it to the end. All right? And then, of course, I'm going to get rid of O, and then I'm going to take the pencil and draw in the rest of the note, which disappeared. All right. Okay, now I have this. I think that's close to what was there. And let's see what happens when I play that.
Has gone. Love has gone.
You know, that's pretty good. Maybe it's not exactly where I wanted it. I don't know.
Love has gone. Love has gone.
And that's really what that second pass is. You just keep fiddling around with lengths, moving things.
Please won't you tell me just what?
Now, another thing you can do is instead of having it just sing please, you could kind of slant up to it. So I'm going to drag that. So now I've got it just kind of sliding up into the word please. So let's listen to that.
Gone. Please won't.
Whoa! That's a bit much. So we'll go back to...
Please won't you tell?
I mean, these are the kind of things you fool about with, you know. So if you make it bigger and you take control, the control button, and bring it, control key, and make it more subtle.
Please won't.
So little shifts like that, adding legato, can make a big difference. I find that with listening to stuff that other people do, that by making the voice bounce around a lot, adding some melisma, adding some little notes up and down.
Tell me just what.
See, that's really boring. It's just what. I mean, if you were to click in and add something in there, I mean, I'm sure this is going to be bad, but, well, let's see.
Me just what.
Well, you know, you just don't know what you're going to get. And sometimes, so if I do this, it might sound really bad.
Tell me just what went wrong. Tell me just what went wrong.
You know, you might go, oh, well, there might be something there, particularly if it was actually written into the song to
tell me just what went wrong.
You know, there might be something there. And instead of holding these long notes really sound unreal. And if you could put a little something in there, and that's what you have to experiment with. And if you experiment more, you get better at it. What happens if there's a word you want to use and it's not in Emvoice's dictionary? Like, let's say I want to write a song about my DAW, about Cubase, because I love it, but it causes me a lot of heartbreak. And I type in Cubase because I want Emvoice to sing it, and look what happens. It turns red. In fact, all 4 notes turn red, and when you've got a word it doesn't recognize, nothing plays at all. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to have to use phonemes, and phonemes are things that you can find in the cheat sheet I told you about before. And you don't have to pay any attention to it unless you are going to do this thing where you're going to create a word. And there are rules. I mean, the first thing that you have to do is you have to put the phonemes within chevrons. And chevrons are these little markings that go over the comma and the period. So I'm going to put a chevron in there. All right. I'm going to need to start with a K. That they have. They don't have C like that. And then because it's Q, I'm going to put a Y. So they have to be capital letters and they have to be spaced apart. So I need a oo sound, and you would think oh, but no. If you look on the second column, the sound for oo is UW. That's cool dude. So UW. And then I need B, that's easy. Now I need an A sound, and you would think, oh, well, that would be AY, but that's actually I. And so if you need an A, it's EY, as in gain weight. And of course, S, and then a final chevron. And the red goes away, and another way you could get yourself out of a jam like that would be just to type 2 words that it knows, 2 real words. I'm going to try another word, this time a word that's 3 syllables. And it's you are so
beautiful.
Thank you. If I right-click on beautiful, you'll see that Emvoice has 4 different ways of pronouncing it. It has little play buttons here, so.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I mean, if you look, you can get a sense of how they use phonemes in creating these words. You may notice there's some 1s and 0s, and those have to do with emphasis. It's a pretty subtle effect, but you can play with that too when you're creating your own words, or if need be, your own alternate words. So let's say now it's 4 syllables. I'm going to go reluctantly.
Reluctantly.
Now, I might have this word reluctantly in a song, and I won't like it pronounced reluctantly. I might want to say reluctantly. And so I right-click it, and there's no alternate spelling for this. So I hit the pencil, and a blank comes out at the bottom. And what I can do is I can go in there and change the phoneme. So instead of re, I change it to eh. And there it is, EH. And
Reluctantly, reluctantly.
so I'm going to select my new one, and you see it says number 1. You might not see the 1. Sometimes if you want to see the number, you have to select this see numbers. That's what that means. It refers to whether you can see a number on the pronunciation that you chose. Words that you create, the pronunciations that you create, they can all be saved in your own dictionary. So you go File, Plugin Settings, Export User Dictionary. And there's my dictionary, and I can save that. And I can just keep overwriting it as I add words. And let's say I want to play the song, work on the song on a different commuter, different setting. I just bring the file for the song along, and I also bring the dictionary for the song along, and then it will work. It will play the same way. Now, remember when I was talking about that song that I picked up from 20 years ago, and I was trying to remember what the melody was? And I want to show you how I worked with Emvoice to rediscover that melody. So I kind of knew the verses reasonably well, but I didn't know what the middle part was. So I'm just gonna play you this so you can see what happened.
An accident did rainfall from the sky and wash your feelings dry. What is the reason for your hasty goodbye? Did love wash away like drops in a stream? Or did it play out like a sweet summer dream? There must be a reason you're afraid to show. Why don't you tell me? Or don't you even know?
I wrote some MIDI, and then I had Lucy sing it. And I listened to the way she sang it, and I said, well, the MIDI that I wrote doesn't sound right with the lyrics and the way she sings it. So let me change the MIDI a little bit, and let me edit it a little bit in Emvoice. And it was this back and forth until I finally found the melody to the song. And then when I sang it myself, here's the weird thing that happened. I actually sang it much better because I hadn't really worked out what the melody was. And once I knew what the melody was, I sang it better. When I looked at my singing in Melodyne, I was really astonished. I was hitting some of these notes right on the right spot, and that's because I knew what I was doing. And so Emvoice was really, really magical in terms of working in this way. And so I think I will continue to work with Emvoice whenever I have to sing something. In terms of doing things that are more advanced, now you can see something that I did try to do here, which is vibrato. And so let me try and get a little closer in there. And you can see I did some stuff with this, and it makes it sound like this.
There must be a reason.
There's a wavering thing there in that note. So how did I do that? Here's another line.
Or don't you even know?
So let's say I want to do some kind of vibrato right here. How do you do that? I saw a guy do a video here where he just punched in a bunch of MIDI notes. So if you're really good in playing live, that's one way to go. But what I do is I just click, and then with my finger on the control key, I can create lots of little areas like this. And what I like about it, doing it by hand, is you can keep that randomness, which is very human. You really can make these things not the same way. Here and there, one's a little bigger, one's a little smaller. And then you select them, again, hitting the control key so that you can do it wherever you want. And then you bring them in and just a little bit over the edge, so you get that variation.
Or don't you even know?
And that's really helpful when you have those long notes, because the short notes play better, but those long notes, that's where it starts to sound very synthy and not real. But if you can put some variation, and one way is the legato moves like I showed you earlier on in the video, but adding a vibrato here and there is very helpful. And the way to know that is you just listen for where there's a problem. You go, I don't like that. Try putting vibrato into it. And as it would be exhausting to do this every single time, what I would recommend is you just copy one, move it over near another note, and then slide it over and replace it. And particularly once you find a vibrato that you like, but you could also make variations of it, so it's not always the same thing. It's that human quality that you're looking for. Vibrato in our old friend Synthesizer V looks like this. You've got all these sliders, and on one hand, that's tremendously awesome to have that kind of digital control, but it's still digital. It's not analog. When you're moving all those things around and you're doing all these random choices, this slide, and you're making something that's a little bit more like life. Another thing you could do, you could certainly experiment with, is to select just a note here and there. All right, so I'm going to select this note. I could do the same thing. I could take it just a little bit off key, which is the way people sing. People don't sing right on the note. Now, I saw somebody in a video select a whole bunch of notes and move them all off key. Well, that's not something that happens. People are a little bit under the note, a little bit over the note. People don't normally sing a whole line flat or sharp. Usually it's all over the place. You're looking for things that you can do to add this humanity and make it more like the way a real singer would do it. As you can see, there are other voices you can select. So I could play this.
Don't know where you went. It seems like an accident.
This is Technologic.
Don't know where you went. It seems like an accident.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of options here that you could experiment with. And they all seem to be processed versions of the default voice. But the one that's really interesting is the one at the bottom, which is alternate take. And what it was when this was recorded by the vocalist, all the phonemes, they took a different take of all the phonemes and give you the opportunity to use this.
Don't know why you went. It seems like an accident.
The great thing about having these other vocals is that you can play them at the same time by copying that file that I was talking to you about, where you can get your whole song to load up on another instantiation of Emvoice, and then you could double with another one of the voices, or you could use, say, the alternate take to be a harmony. There's all these options that you can have, and you don't necessarily need to use those voices by themselves. They could play very, very lightly to thicken up your original voice. It adds a whole host of potential to Emvoice. I hope this was helpful. I didn't try to get into a version of the song where she was singing the best possible way that she could be. I just wanted to show you how you could create a song very, very quickly. And I mean quickly. And that it's useful. That's how it's useful to me. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you soon.